what do you think about President Trump going over to Syria and blowing up that building there?
Well, boy, you didn't waste any time hitting me with the big question, did you?
That's right.
Yeah. I personally did not feel that this was the right thing for the president to be doing. You know, the Assad regime, which, has its problems like every regime in the Middle East, it is a dictatorship. We don't see, American-style democracy in the Middle East. But at least under Mr. Assad, it's a secular dictatorship, which means that he's not all that concerned about who you worship or how you worship, as long as you don't try to undermine his regime.
Mm.
And we have a rebel war that is ongoing against his regime. He is a secular Shia Muslim who's really not very Muslim at all. He allows Christians to worship freely.
Yeah.
Protects the Christians from Sunni aggression, Sunni Muslim aggression. And now we have the U.S. government seemingly to change on a dime. We've had President Trump speaking out until this attack as if he wanted to help the Assad regime put down this Sunni rebellion, which we have people in there, make no mistake. They go under many different names, these rebels.
Right.
But make no mistake, they're all Sharia-compliant Sunni Muslims who would like to set up a religious state based on Sunni Islam and the Quran. And we know what that means for Christians.
Yeah.
It's open season on Christians as soon as we get that type of regime. It's what happened in Iraq. It's what happened in Syria until the military put it down. It's what happened in Libya. And it's what happened in all these Arab Spring states where Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton tried to go in and set up a religious Muslim Brotherhood-backed Sunni regime.
Yeah.
The Christians get killed, and the Sunnis get empowered.
Do you think the president is listening to his Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, who want to do this?
Well, I think he's listening to several purveyors of bad advice. I'm not going to speak specifically towards Rex Tillerson, although he did make some troubling comments.
Right.
Yes. But then you've got Jared Kushner in there with his Wall Street buddies giving the president bad advice. You've got Mr. McMaster, the new national security advisor, who I watched on Fox News last night. And he seemed to be spouting a lot of propaganda about the murderous regime and the mass murder. And, Jesse, it's interesting how when 80 Muslims, Sunni Muslims, are killed by, they tell us it's a gas attack. I'm still doubtful as to exactly who was responsible for it, but they say it was Assad. But it's interesting how 80 or so people who were killed by Assad, and we have a worldwide attention placed upon it.
Yeah.
We have dozens of Christians slaughtered every day across the Middle East, and we never hear anything about it. So I guess it's Muslim lives matter in the Middle East, but Christian lives do not matter.
Amazing. Is Assad, is he a dictator?
I would say so, absolutely.
And
just like Saddam was a dictator. I don't know that he's as bad as Saddam was as far as his brutality, but he definitely is a dictator. The only difference is he's a secular dictator who does not enforce Sharia law.
Right.
And it's Sharia law, Jesse, that, as you know, it is Sharia law that is so dangerous and life-threatening to Christians in the Middle East.
Right. What is the proof that he is a dictator?
Well, dictators come in different levels, as you know. On a scale of 1 to 10, I don't know where he should be placed, but he's certainly at least to a 5. If you cross him, if you are suspected of trying to undermine his regime, I am fairly certain that you'll get a one-way ticket to a torture chamber somewhere,
Yeah.
underneath Damascus. You know, Mubarak was that way in Egypt. As you know, the U.S. sent some of its jihadi suspects over to Mubarak after 9/11 and had him use some rather enhanced interrogations, as we called them, but it was really, I think, torture. Uh, and Saddam Hussein did the same thing. However, if you are a Christian in these countries and you're not, politically trying to undermine his regime, you can go about your life freely. You can
Right.
go to church, you can worship in your house, in your church, and such without concern that you're going to have the secret police show up at your door and usher you over to one of these torture chambers. It's just not going to happen. You're going to live free of those type of concerns.
I noticed that Iraq is a mess now, and over in Egypt is a mess. There was an attack on two Christian churches this past Sunday
Yes.
there in Egypt.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what I meant by Muslims' lives seem to matter more than Christian lives in the Middle East. We've gotten a little coverage, but, I was watching Fox News all day yesterday, and I thought it looked like 10-to-1 coverage, 10-to-1. For every 1 minute that was devoted to a terrorist attack on the church, the two churches in Egypt, it seemed like there were 10 minutes of coverage for the gas attack, which happened last week, which wasn't as fresh of news, in Syria.
That's amazing. One last thing I think about this: when the president went over to Syria and did the bombing, I was surprised by it. I was surprised because there was no sign that he was going to do it. I know he was talking about doing something, but I had no idea he would do it as quickly as he did. It was a total surprise. Is it possible that the surprise attack is what is causing us to doubt that it was the right thing?
Well, Jesse, there's a lot of intelligence that we don't have access to. So I will say this. If this attack is a one-off, meaning we're going to bomb this facility and send a message to Assad, but not only to Assad, the other dictators across the world that, you cannot use these chemical weapons. If that was the sole purpose for this attack, I won't be too critical of the president
Right.
for launching it.
Yeah.
However, if this is the beginning of a prolonged war against Assad, where we try to do regime change in that country, like we did with disastrous results in Iraq, then I think that we can pretty much say we can kiss this Trump administration goodbye in terms of the what we're going to see in terms of foreign policy. We're going to see the continued empowerment of the Sunni Muslim radicals in the Middle East, and I hope that's not the case. I hope this is just a one-off to send a message.
It's being reported that, Mike Cernovich has reported that McMaster is manipulating intelligence report given to Trump to trick him into ground war. And right now, McMaster and Petraeus supposedly want 150,000 troops on the ground there. What do you say to that?
Very, very troubling. Very troubling, Jesse.
Yeah.
This McMaster was, I think, a very bad choice of an advisor. We would have been much better served with Mike Flynn, who was the president's original choice for that position. But you saw what happened to him, railroaded out by the Democrats and the liberal media on these trumped-up charges of being some sort of, plant for the Russians, which was 100% false.
The KT McFarland is resigning from Deputy National Security Advisor. And I don't know how true that. Did you hear about that?
No, I haven't heard that one yet, Jesse.
Is that a good idea?
I would say probably a bad sign. Yeah, probably a bad sign.
Is President Trump a globalist?
I certainly would not have called him a globalist during the campaign.
Right.
Absolutely not. And I think the jury's out, however, and this Syria thing is certainly one to watch. If he tries to do a regime change in Syria, then then I don't see what's all that different between his foreign policy and that of President
Obama.
George W. Bush.
Oh, Bush. Okay.
And to a lesser extent, even Obama.
Right.
Because they were both globalists.
Yes.
Correct.
But yeah, I thought the president, if anything, was a nationalist, not a globalist.
Right. That's what we thought we were electing. Correct.